Hey y'all and howdy, welcome back to It's a Seago Thing. My name is Erin. This is a family-friendly, multi-purpose channel where I talk about anything and everything. Today I kind of want to just have a little laundry talk about foster care. So as you can tell, I'm at work right now and I am just getting a couple of things done before I really start to clean. So, for many of you who are curious about foster care, you may be curious about adoption, and you may be trying to understand how all of this works. I have definitely made a couple of, I feel like, really good informative videos in my earlier days of being on a YouTube channel. So definitely go check that out. If you go to the playlist here on the channel for It's a Seago Thing, I do have some videos that I have dedicated to about the foster care license, the foster care process, and I've just kind of talked about that a little bit. Also, if you are going through infertility and you're considering fostering to adopt or just adoption through CPS or adopting through an agency, I would love for you to go to my playlist for infertility. There's a whole bunch of other acronyms next to it like IVF, IUI, PCOS, Clomid, all that other stuff. But if you go to that playlist, there is a video that I actually dedicate to couples who are in the process of trying to make that very hard decision of ending their fertility journey and kind of what's next and what to think about. I don't give anything specific as far as advice because that's a really tough decision to make. And I think it's a very important one to take time to really consider all of the aspects of it, because when you end your fertility journey, you're beginning a new journey, which is a really good thing, and there is a lot of positives to it. But I remember 4 years ago when Sean and I were in kind of an emotional storm of trying to figure out should we end our journey? How do we end this? What is life going to look like? And how do we do that? And I will tell you this, guys, 4 years later, and during that 4 years, we've fostered 8 children. We've respited 4. I will tell you this, I'm still grieving that loss of ending our infertility journey. I'm not grieving it out of regret, because I know that there was a lot of choice taken away from me, that my body was rejecting the IVF treatments. We had 2 failed IUI, and then we were going through the IVF procedure, and my body rejected trying to think. We hadn't gone through the transfer yet. They were putting me through the hormonal prep to get ready for the egg retrieval, and my body was rejecting the different hormonal prep that I didn't really have to go through with IUI. And so anyway, I was rushed to the ER, and one thing led to another, and we were told by the ER doctor and then 2 weeks later by my OBGYN that it just wasn't safe. I had 2 medical conditions that combined made it really kind of hard for me to get pregnant and stay pregnant, and then it would add health complications for me during pregnancy, specifically around the 6th and 7th month, which is when a woman is typically in her second trimester. And then there was a genetic factor that we found out during our IVF process that where we found out I had a 25% chance of passing it on to our firstborn, and that would cause significant health issues for that baby. And to many people, 25% may not sound like a lot, but it really is in the grand scheme of things, especially when you're dealing with science and medicine, and that if you have a 1 in 4 chance of passing something on to your firstborn child, and that continuing on generation after generation, you're not only you not only have a high potential of causing your own child complications in life, but say their issues are possibly mild, their firstborn child has an even higher probability of having that carrier gene that I'm passing on actually activate in them. So that 25% goes up to like 50 to 75% basically. And so that when all of that was just being thrown at us, I mean, it was overwhelming. It was really hard to process. But, given all of that, I'm still grieving that as a loss because I will never be able to have my own biological child. And let me tell you guys, and ladies, for couples, y'all are going through this, or y'all may be experiencing secondary infertility. Maybe you have your own biological child, but you're not able to get pregnant again, and you're dealing with issues. You're starting to deal with that anxiety. You're starting to deal with, I think, kind of that internal panic for both of you. Trust me, none of that is wrong. None of that is incorrect. It's actually perfectly healthy and natural to experience all of that. So, how did that lead us to foster care? Sean had always wanted to foster. I wasn't really familiar with fostering. I, I, I knew more about adoption, but I knew more about adoption because I heard of it, but I didn't really understand the concept of adoption and what that really entails. Um, the the concept of fostering was something that my husband really understood because not only did he have a friend growing up, um, who was a foster child, but in my in when my husband was in his 20s, he volunteered over at a domestic violence shelter, for actually specifically for children, and girls. Um, they were the ones who had experienced domestic violence. They had experienced, rape, and which is really hard for me to say, and I don't mean to, whisper that. It's hard for people to imagine that there are female children, who have been raped. There were children who he was part of a mentor program, and he had to go through training to and really had to kind of go through a lot of volunteer hours to get to this point of mentoring. But he mentored a lot of these girls. There were a lot of girls, who were part of human trafficking. Um, it was just a really surreal and humbling experience for my husband. I'm honestly jealous because I feel like, as I mean, and he kind of took on the secondary trauma of that as well. But in many regards, I kind of feel like, maybe if I had had kind of an experience even similar to that, I feel like that might have actually, helped during the, I would say the initial first two placements that we had. By the time we had our third placement, which was this year, um, I recognize that I actually need to try to return. Well, I say try. We're dealing with so many different financial, hiccups right now, because life is life, and we're dealing with two, used and older cars, and that's been crazy. As you guys have been following my journey, my health, um, and I feel like for the last 2 months, I feel like every week I'm going into the doctor, and actually it has been kind of every week. So if we're not pouring our money into our cars, we're pouring it into my health. So it's crazy. Um, but I need to get back to my counselor, and I really need to kind of start focusing on a lot of, emotional wounds that I have recognized in myself, that I have, really come to understand my own challenges. And that's something I really wanted to bring to light was for many of you who are coming from the infertility journey or secondary infertility. So if you have your own biological children, but perhaps you're not able to get pregnant again, or you've experienced a miscarriage, which we did. We experienced a miscarriage too. Our miscarriage was not, I wouldn't say was as far along as many people. Our miscarriage, we were at, I think the nurse, put us at about 5, maybe almost 6 weeks. It was like during that 2.5 week waiting period. So they kind of counted it 4 weeks, and then the fifth and sixth week, they're that you're pregnant, or you're technically pregnant, especially if you're experiencing a lot of symptoms, which I was. And we were excited about that because I was having like morning sickness, and I was having, breast tenderness, and I was late, and there was just so many there was just such a joy about that, because this was at that point, that was our second round of IUI. But I miscarried, and it was probably 5 or 6 weeks. And, that's nowhere near, I think, as hard as when you're as close to, like some people are when they're on their 10th week or 12th week, and you're like right there at the finish line. You feel like where you can start really rejoicing in your pregnancy and start telling everybody and start and really just kind of start announcing it. A lot of people start announcing their pregnancies between 10 and 12 weeks. And so we were just so overjoyed that we were making it to like the 5th and 6th week, which is very exciting because, we were thinking, oh my gosh, so if we could just make it 6 more weeks and get to week 12, then, that would be a really great, and it was actually going to kind of fall on Thanksgiving when we would have told everybody. Or maybe a little, we probably would have been like, I think I probably would have been, trying to think. Yeah, I think I would have been a little over 12 weeks by the time we would have told everybody. So we probably would have done either like a pumpkin for Halloween kind of announcement, or we were probably thinking about waiting because I'm a big girl, and so I probably wouldn't have been showing very much, around 14 weeks or so. And I mean, of course, you never know. But they could tell that it was at least a singleton. It was hard to tell if there were twins, but, we at least knew that it was a singleton. So, me being a bigger girl, more full-figure girl, I probably could have gotten away with, of not, showing per se until I was like well into my second trimester, which is pretty common for a lot of full-figure girls. But that didn't work out. And so, one of the things that in foster care that's really hard for people to, I think, to understand is, you're going to come in to raising your children, biological or not. You're going to come into raising your children with your own emotional wounds, your own emotional baggage. And I will say this, I don't think I was aware of my own emotional baggage with my own parents until I started having children in my home, where I was the parent, or at least I had to step into that role and be that parent for that child or children. And that it's been over the last 3 years that I have really realized significant emotional wounds that honestly I feel I need to work on myself, and I need to understand how can I improve myself, how can I improve my attachment style, how can I improve my way of connecting with a child and reaching to them, where I have to overcome discomforts and challenges that are emotional for me. And that's something that I think for many parents, you begin to really experience that. It starts to come out what you went through in your past. And this is not to say that all of our parents are terrible. There are many people out there who have very healthy relationships with their parents. But that doesn't mean that you're still unfazed by any kind of emotional wounds. You can still have emotional wounds. It may not be as significant as other people, but it also may just be that there were things that you observed, you experienced with your own parents. Perhaps you'd like to do something different. And that is also very natural for each generation to slightly change things for the next generation. So in their hope, they can pass on something either far more positive or just slightly positive than what they possibly experienced growing up themselves. So for me, one of the things that I've come into realizing is there are improvements that I need to make. There are things that I need to humble myself to, especially with a counselor, to understand how can I really help myself overcome some of my emotional challenges with attachment and connection, which I know I experienced those challenges and issues with my own parents, because my own parents really struggle with attachments and connection. It's not that they're incapable of having a relationship, but their way of having a relationship with their children maybe weren't the healthiest ways of doing that, because they had different ways of expressing themselves. They have different ways of loving, and everybody loves and expresses themselves very differently. And so their way of loving and expressing to me probably didn't fit my attachment style, probably didn't fit who I was as a, with my personality type. So because of that, I have interpreted and processed different subtle messages over the years growing up. I have interpreted that, and it has caused me different anxieties and different, I would say, different moments of panic when I'm with, children, or when I'm fostering children. And so the last placement that we had, I realized, you know what? I'm glad that Sean and I have a break right now, and I'm glad that we're making positive changes in our life financially. And we are, downsizing our life, trying to minimalize and really trying to kind of clean out the clutter that has built over time. This is a really great opportunity for me to self-check and to go see my counselor and say, hey, I think I know of specific things that I'd really like to work on, and I'd really like some help on learning how to work through this. So that way, when we reopen our home in 2019, I can feel stronger inside of myself. I can feel a different level of confidence. I can help myself take responsibility for my emotional, psychological health. So that way, when I'm fostering a child and hoping that we are able to adopt a child or children, I'm able to really not just connect with them, but communicate what healthy boundaries are in a relationship, what a healthy relationship can feel like and look like, and what are things that they're able to strive for in life and to experience. I think for me, I would love to be able to really form a deep and meaningful relationship with our children. So that way, whatever experiences they have in life, whether it's good or bad, I would hope that they feel secure in their relationship with myself and my husband, that they can, call us up and share the good news. But even if they have, something negative or bad happen, and they want to call and cry, we always hope that our children will learn to be self-sufficient and independent and rely on their peer group and or whatever significant relationship they're with in life. But I also want them to feel comfortable and secure enough if they want to call us. Okay, I'm going to have to wrap this up because my voice is starting to get hoarse again, and apparently I'm running low on time. But I hope that this was helpful for you guys today. I know I probably touched on a lot of hard things to hear. There is still such an unfortunate taboo about seeking counseling when dealing with emotional hardships, especially within ourselves. One of the things that I encourage you, if you are considering being a foster parent, if you're considering being an adoptive parent, perhaps you've already fostered. Perhaps you are fostering and you're still fostering, or you have adopted, or you're in the process of, you have a pre-adoptive placement with you. Here's the thing, guys. If you are feeling like you're struggling, if you feel like you're really dealing with a lot of emotions and you don't know how to talk to your agency about it, or your CPS caseworker, maybe you're a little scared too because you're not really sure how they're going to take that. And trust me, I 100% understand that. Sometimes you're not really sure that although you have the best of intention of expressing yourself and any emotional struggles you may be having, you don't know how that other person's going to interpret it. So there is a fear associated with being a bit emotionally raw and vulnerable. So here's what I really highly suggest. Push aside all taboo about counseling. A counselor is there, whether they are a licensed practicing counselor, whether they are a clinical psychologist, a counselor is there to guide you and walk beside you as you are processing and attempting to heal from emotional hardships, emotional challenges that you are dealing with, and that's causing you, I would say, struggles in life. And here's the struggle. If you don't feel like yourself, if you don't really feel like you are coping or handling with your day-to-day stresses very well, and you feel very overwhelmed, it's okay to admit that talking to a counselor and really seeking that private one-on-one counsel and advice by just opening up and expressing yourself really makes a world of difference. If anything, you're going to learn that everything you're experiencing and feeling and thinking and going through are things that everybody else has gone through too in your situation. So you're not alone. I would also strongly recommend that you get involved with a support group or a support network for foster parents and adoption parents. If you are not the church-going type, reach out to your CPS caseworker. Reach out to your case manager at your agency, depending on, if you're with an agency or if you're through Child Protective Services, or if you deal with both, which that happens a lot. Reach out to them and ask them, do they know any support services that can provide you and your husband, or you and your spouse, basically, any type of, emotional support or respite. Maybe all you guys need is a respite weekend where your foster or pre-adoptive placement children go stay a weekend at another licensed home, just so that you and your spouse can have just a few days with either your own biological children or with each other, depending on y'all's, family situation, where y'all can just have that time to reflect and to just kind of collect your thoughts and really understand, how are we feeling? How are we doing as a family and as a couple, as a unit? And if you realize there may be some problems that have arisen while taking in a foster placement or while taking in a pre-adoptive placement, this may be the time to address that. There's never any shame in disrupting the placement if your current family unit is not functioning. That will really be a whole separate video that I will be talking about, which is what is it like to disrupt a placement? What are the reasons or common reasons? And what is it like to say no when you get a placement call? But that will be a whole separate video. So I hope this was helpful for you guys today. My desire is always to provide education, inspiration, and motivation. And I post my videos Monday through Friday. So we're kind of coming towards the end of the week here, which I just can't believe. And I hope you guys have had a really good week so far. And I hope that y'all's Halloween was really good. But at this point, I really just feel like this has been kind of a whirlwind 2018. And I think many of you will probably agree with that. So anyway, I will see you guys tomorrow. Bye.